Shadows are falling and I'm running out of breath. Keep me in your heart for a while. If I leave you, it doesn't mean I love you any less. Keep me in your heart for a while. When you get up in the morning and you see that crazy sun, keep me in your heart for a while. There's a train leaving nightly call when all is said and done. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sometimes when you're doing simple things around the house, maybe you'll think of me and smile. You know I'm tired of you, like the buttons on your blouse. Keep me in your heart for a while. Hold me in your thoughts, take me to your dreams, touch me as I'm falling into view. When the winter comes, keep the fires lit, and I will be right next to you. Engine drivers headed north to Pleasant Street. Keep me in your heart for a while. These wheels keep turning, but they're running out of steam. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la. Keep me in your heart for a while. Keep me in your heart for a while.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. If we could ask you to please be seated. We will start the ceremony momentarily. Friendly reminder to please turn off your cell phones as to not disturb the order of the service. And on behalf of the family, welcome to Beechwood on this beautiful Friday afternoon. Friendly reminder to all speakers to speak directly in the microphone as our service is live streamed through the internet for those who are attending from afar. Thank you for your attention. Dr. Glossop, you have the floor.
My name is Bob Glossop, and I want to start, first of all, by thanking each and every one of you for being here. I also want to acknowledge those people who have joined us by virtue of the live streaming and welcome them as well to this difficult but important moment. Your presence, your care, your consideration, your kindness in being here is much appreciated. It's a gift that we give to one another, actually, at this point in time. And I think it's fair to say that your presence is most appreciated by Ava and Jeanette. Now, you all know that Ronald and Ava lived a life often separated by considerable distance, with Ronald based most of the time in Ottawa, and Ava always getting smarter and smarter in faraway places like Africa, China, Oxford, Guelph, Halifax. And I would ask you to keep this sort of commuter romance that Ronald and Ava had over the course of their lives in mind as you listen to Ava and Ron's friend, Melanie Conley, and Jason Fowler, another close friend of Ronald and Ava's.
Today, here, and laugh about our funny little ways while we have a few minutes to breathe. And I know that it's time you must leave, but darling, be home soon. I couldn't bear to wait an extra minute if you dawdled. My darling, be home soon. It's not just these few hours, but I've been waiting since I toddled for the great relief of having you to talk to. At last, and I see that the time spent confused was the time that I spent without you, and I feel myself in bloom. Oh, but darling, be home soon. I couldn't bear to wait an extra minute if you dawdled. My darling, be home soon. It's not just these few hours, but I've been waiting since I toddled for the great relief of having you to talk to. The sky, try and see beyond the houses and your eyes. It's okay to shoot the moon. Just darling, darling, be home soon. I couldn't bear to wait an extra minute if you dawdled. It's not just these few hours, but I've been waiting since once I toddled for the great relief of having you to talk to.
I don't know how to say thank you. I have to compose myself now. So I told you that my name is Bob Glossop, and that's what almost everyone calls me. Ronald never called me Bob Glossop. To Ronald, I was always Robert, which just goes to show that Ronald did things his way. Now, on occasions like this, it's often said that he was one of a kind, but this time, it's true. I never met anybody like Ronald, and my guess is that you didn't know anybody like Ronald either. He was described in the notice of his death as a man who demonstrated panache. Panache, by which one means grand, with verve, style, flair, even reckless courage. Panache does not come naturally, it is cultivated, as was Ronald. I met Ronald during the first week of September in 1967. I was 19 years old and wearing a tie-dyed t-shirt. I was driving my mother's Pontiac Parisienne convertible with the top down that I had borrowed for a week, and on the side of the road stood a man wearing a tie and a tweed sports jacket. He was pointing at me to pull over to the side of the road. Ronald did not hitchhike. He did not need to. He simply exuded a certain sense of authority, such that I pulled over, he got in, and introduced himself as Ronald Clark. I drove him to the residence that he and I were to live in for that year. And when we got there, he invited me to accompany him to his room for a cup of tea. My mother drank tea. I did not. But I accepted the invitation, and for the next 53 years, I spoke to Ronald or emailed him at least twice a week, no matter where Ava had taken him. Guelph, Hamilton, Africa, China, Oxford. And for the last 6 months, I have missed him. We have all missed him. Why? What was it that he brought to us? Well, a whole lot. Wit and humor, not a comical sense of humor, but sometimes black appreciation of the absurd, irony, coincidence. He also expected a lot from us. He was precise and wanted us to be so too. Early on, I said to him, "I wish you luck." And he said, "Good luck or bad luck." He was, in fact, precise in all things. And of course, in order to be precise, one needs the right tools. Until I met Ronald, it was only James Bond who wore a Rolex watch. I had never heard of, much less seen and held, a Mont Blanc fountain pen. I smoked Export A cigarettes. Ronald smoked meerschaum pipes, cigarettes by Gauloise and Gitin. And on occasion, just a second, he used snuff from Fribourg and Trier, Haymarket Street in London. It's a little dry now, but Ronald gave it to me 52 years ago. One day, Ron and I were fixing something. Well, actually, Ronald was fixing something, and I was there to hold it for him. This happened quite often when Ava was away, as she was quite often, or when the job required me because I am taller than Ava. At any rate, I was getting tired of holding whatever it was over my head, and I said to Ronald, "That's good enough." And I'll never forget the look on his face. It went well beyond curiosity. It was disbelief and disappointment in me, his friend, because good enough was just not a phrase that made sense to Ronald in any way whatsoever. It was either right or it was not right. So to live one's life with panache, one needs a good sense of taste and an appreciation of quality. He was discerning in his choice of tools, books, door locks, gardening implements, computer virus software, and last but not least, the person with whom he lived his life, Ava. Now you, all of you, look around you, we should all be quite honored because he gathered a pretty impressive group of people that he could call his friends. Ronald liked everything that was made well. He liked it so much that when he found something that was well made, he would buy more than one, sometimes a dozen, just in case they would sometime not be available. Shirts, suits, Dutch paint, light bulbs, and of course, ties. And you all look fabulous. Ronald was a gentleman of good manners, impeccable, one might say. And what I know is that manners were genuinely for him a sign of respect and consideration and care for others. He was in this way a good friend to all of us. He sometimes sought to protect us, or me at least, from harm, even when I would dismiss his warnings about oil changes or computer viruses or any hand tools that did not come from Lee Valley. He cared about us, and that is why we are here today, to acknowledge that we cared about and still care about him. And together we mourn the loss of our friend, and we want those he loved most to know that we still care for them. So there's one person in this room who has known Ronald longer than any of us. And that's Ron's sister, Jeanette, and her daughter, Michelle, who was very much loved by her uncle, and I'm going to ask them to come up and speak to us first.
Hello. When Ronnie died in March, many of you shared your memories of him on the website, and I realized then that we all knew a different person. Perhaps you knew him as Ronald, the philosopher, the writer and editor, or as Ron, the car mechanic, the master builder, the financier, or perhaps as Ronnie, the actor, the wine lover, the bon vivant. I knew Ronnie. My baby brother, the one I shared early adventures with, son that foretold the man he would become. He was just 3 when we moved to Paris, and that first Christmas we went to a Christmas pageant. Afterwards he remarked, "It was really good of those kings to give the baby Jesus all those francs and cents." Already thinking about money. His creative and independent attitude to life and rules was also evident in those early years. His beginning French was somebody was talking about the French play, so he started at 3. His beginning French was English, with an impeccable French and U. Rabbits, rune, really, rapidly. He did subsequently learn real French at the convent school that was located beside our house. However, his boredom with French pedagogical methods was soon evident. He would ask to go to the bathroom, leave the school, run through the playground, climb under the fence, and be home. Even his sense of style began to emerge. "I won't wear no dress," he said, but note the smiling face when given white gloves. When Ronnie was 11, we moved to England. He threw himself into the quirks of English life, acquired an English accent, which caused my new friends to wonder which one of us was adopted. He discovered neckties, hunted with beagles, and began to become the perfectionist who held to account those who didn't reach his high standards. He became the quintessential English gentleman who, over the years, intimidated many. Like a true English gentleman, Ronnie's true feelings were always below the surface. His love was shown by his actions, rarely by his words. He gave great hugs, generous and intuitive gifts. His eyes shone with love, and as you all know, he was always there to help. You all knew him in so many different ways, but I'm sure you will agree that my little baby brother became a man of humor, honor, integrity, and kindness. So we are here to celebrate him, but also to mourn and the loss of his presence in our lives. As we do that, I hope you will take comfort with me from these words from the writer Washington Irving. There is a sacredness in tears. They are not the mark of weakness, but of power. They speak more eloquently than 10,000 tongues. They are the messengers of overwhelming grief and unspeakable love.
There are many ways I can remember my Uncle Ron, stories or memories I can share. It is this sharing of memories and stories that keep us alive with our families after our physical bodies have died. To keep Ron with us always, with your help, I would like to deliver into your lexicon a phrase already used in my family called doing a Ron. Though, as my mom has pointed out, our different relationships allowed us to differently know certain sides of Ron: serious, financially astute, witty, mechanically inclined, perhaps gifted, intellectual, playful, and sometimes even silly. There's one thing we all know him for: his expectation and quest for excellence. And woe to the service provider who advertised excellence but did not measure up. Doing a Ron is tricky and takes some practice, and there are a number of elements that must be executed in a particular way, in a particular tone, and perhaps even with particular props, such as a tie. It could include the phrase, "my good man." Doing a Ron can really only be done at high-end establishments with upscale products where reputation is part of the business's currency. You cannot do a Ron at the Motel 6. To do a Ron is to notice a flaw, omission, or mistake, point out a problem in a manner that brooks no further argument, and makes the service provider slightly embarrassed that they would offer you such an inferior product or service. And, this is key, make up for this unfortunate occurrence in a way where you leave with more or better, or more and better, service or product than you originally paid for. For example, on a trip to Europe, an American Express travel agent forgot to inform of the visa needed to pass through Austria, which resulted in Ron and Ava being unceremoniously thrown off the train in the night. The travel agency started with an apology, but ended up paying for both the taxi and the flight needed to get Ron and Ava to their intended destination. I managed to do a Ron when I was staying at a hotel and was fast asleep in my room when someone else tried to enter with their working door key. They had re-rented my room with me in it. I did not feel that the free breakfast they offered was sufficient. I did a Ron until they were sufficiently sorry, and I had 2 free nights in a better room. We have lost a unique and irreplaceable man, but let a part of his legacy be that we hold the world to a higher standard of quality and culture. I invite you to do a Ron when the service or quality is not what it should be, and in that way we can carry a piece of him with us always.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, Michelle. RCF, as we used to call him sometimes, had a way of attaching himself to our hearts. And he listened well to others as though they meant something important to him, because they did. 4 of those people, Ava's nieces and nephews, will now tell us a little about their uncle. Now, just in case anybody gets confused, Ava and Eva are the same person. It does still confuse me. I gather, the best I can understand is that to those people who grew up with her, her close family, people who have known her for a long, long, long time, can call her Eva. People like me who have known her for only 40 plus years must call her Ava. I'm not exactly sure I understand, but Eva and Ava will be referred to in the next presentations. I'm going to ask, first of all, Jeffrey and Jeffrey's sister Kim, who's in Malaysia, and we have a video from her to speak to us. Kim and Jeffrey are the children of Ava's sister Yafa. Jeffrey.
Just to clarify, I think Eva came from Bubby. He would always say, "Yoy, Eva." So that's how I think there was the distinction there. You need the yoy. So in celebration of Ron, I think it's been highlighted that we all knew Ron in different times and different capacity. In reflecting upon our relationship, I realized that we share commonality in the uncle-nephew dynamic. Today, I have 6 nephews and 1 niece that live in different cities than I do. And our relationship is built around festive occasions and events, much in the same way that my relationship was with Ron. And in my efforts as the uncle to engage and bond with them, it has made me realize that Ron's efforts with me through my childhood, has made me realize Ron's efforts through my childhood. A few years ago, on a visit to Ron and Eva's home in Ottawa, Ron actively sought out my daughter's, Lila's, attention, who was 6 at the time. And upon recognizing her interest in numbers, proceeded to measure the distance, the length, and the width on everything in every room in the house. Lila was thrilled, and quite obviously at the time, so was Ron. One of the things that stands out most in our memories of Ron is the often blustery weather that accompanied his and Eva's arrival at our doorstep for family holidays. There was nothing that stopped them from joining the countless Rosh Hashanah dinners and the Passover seders and birthdays. Not gale-force winds, snowstorms, rain, sleet, ice would succumb to his will. We had images, Kim and I, of Ron driving on the 417 ever so painfully slowly on their way to Bubby's or Louie's, Nana's, or our house for family dinner. And they'd show up at the door, Ron with the snow in his beard, his big boots, and his Gore-Tex jacket. which, while not the latest in fashion-forward design, one could be certain was fully and properly researched and purchased because of its weatherproofing technology. All this to say, Ron would show up, always. Even when you were not on this conference, Ron showed up. In his life, in a life that had him and Eva crisscrossing the country and literally the planet in various states of home renovation and construction, Ron showed up. There was no excuses, there was no complaining, there was no drama. They crossed the threshold, welcomed by the aroma of matzo ball and chicken soup, and we would receive a kiss on the cheek or an iron-clad handshake, followed by Ron's quintessential hello. We will miss him deeply.
This is Jeffrey's sister, Kim, from Malaysia.
Hi everyone, my name is Kim. I'm Ron's niece, and I wish I could be with you today. On the nights when Eva and Ron would cross provincial lines into the realm of Jewish high holidays, birthdays, and weddings, there was always a sense of anticipation of the time that we'd get to spend sitting with Ron at the table or in the corner of the couch. His calm demeanor gently urged us to grow quiet to be with him, and we would sit by his side in a conspiratorial tete-a-tete, discussing anything that seemed mildly interesting, amusing, or even dangerous, as we plotted how to sneak food before the Seder or how to best get Julian flustered about anything. The conversations were sometimes Socratic in nature, as Ron would nudge us toward a new perspective or make us reconsider a long-held notion about something. No topic was too small, no idea too mundane. Ron was game for anything. Sometimes I wondered whether he had a master list of topics hidden somewhere from which he would select that evening's dinner conversation. I wouldn't put it past him. No matter the subject, I always felt like whatever we discussed was the most interesting conversation going on in the room, because Ron would lean in, and you felt as though you were the only person in the room. He would lean in, thereby turning you into a co-conspirator, into whatever plan he'd hatched or question he had formulated. He would participate and gently coax along the conversation at whatever level you were ready for. I've watched this happen more recently with my own two sons, James and Quinn. Ron leaning in with a quiet smile on his face, engaged with the same intention and interest that he gave us on various couches in various homes across so many decades, knowing all too well how wonderful it felt to be the lucky one at Ron's side, the one toward whom he was leaning. Because while seated elbow to elbow with Ron, he had the rare ability to make you feel that he was there just to see you, to be with you, to glean some secret information that you alone possessed. Together by his side, it felt like the calm at the center of a Passover storm. Ron showed up. Ron leaned in. These simple and yet powerful images of Ron are reminders for us to engage and to connect with those we love, especially now when the world moves so quickly and there are a million distractions pulling us every which way. As my brother Jeff and I prepared for today's gathering, we realized just how grateful we are to our uncle for those quiet moments and for showing us time and time again that we are enough, that sitting with a loved one, leaning into a conversation, is worthy of our full attention. And so, in honor of Ron, we invite everyone joining us today, wherever you may be in the world, to lean into the person next to you, to smile mischievously, and to say, hello. Thank you. He would lean in, thereby turning you into a co-conspirator, into whatever plan you hatched or question you formulated. He would participate and gently coax along the conversation at whatever level you were ready for. I've watched this happen more recently with my own two sons, James and Quinn. Ron leaning in with a quiet smile on his face, engaged with the vulnerability to make you feel that he was there just to see you, to be with you, to glean some secret information that you alone possessed. Together by his side, it felt like a home at the center of a Passover storm. Ronald showed up. Ronald did. These simple and yet powerful images are reminders for us to engage and to connect with those we love, especially now in the world moves so quickly and there are a million distractions pulling us every which way. As my brother Jack and I prepared for today's gathering, we realized just how grateful we are for our uncle for those quiet moments and for showing us time and time again that we are enough, that sitting with a loved one, leaning into a conversation is worthy of our full attention. And so, in honor of Ron, we invite everyone joining us today, wherever you may be in the world, to lean into the person next to you, to smile mischievously, and to say, hey,
Thank you, Jeffrey and Kim. I'm sorry for the audio problem. Kayla and Aaron, who are niece and nephew to Ronald and Ava, have prepared a presentation for us as well. They are the children of the much loved and much missed brother Louis. And I'm going to show a video, and we'll hear from Kayla a little bit later as well.
Hey everyone, hope you're having a wonderful afternoon celebrating the life of Ron. And I wanted to just phone in here from San Francisco. For those who don't know, I was Ron's nephew, Aaron, and Eva was kind enough to give us the opportunity to record a few words, talk about who Ron was for us, and share a few stories.
And I'm Kayla, Aaron's sister, and I also wanted to share some stories about the past, but more so some of the kind of memories that I've now created more recent times, getting to know Ron. So Aaron's gonna start it off with some stories from a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say first and foremost, Ron to me was what he likely was for most people, which is at the surface, obviously a very intelligent and wise figure. Always somewhat of an enigma, and by that I mean, like, I still to this day don't really quite know what he did in terms of like a career, but was always just at the same time able to just be playful with me, and always really appreciated his great sense of humor. Of course, we had a tremendous age difference and age gap, but would always able to kind of come down to my level and engage with me and essentially play with me. And so, like, a couple of memories that come to mind, you know, of course I have a lot of great memories visiting Ron and Eva in Ottawa, at their home in Ottawa, as well as a trip we did in Halifax, which was really fun. But actually a lot of the time spent was when, or some memories that come to mind were when Eva and Ron would come and visit us in Montreal, and we would gather around for the holidays at Kayla and I's bubby Rachel's place. And two times that come to mind, I've mentioned this on another call with a group of folks, but I think it's just really encompasses kind of like how Ron and I interacted, at least as a child when I was growing up, was I think he had to leave the apartment to get something, and he rang the doorbell. We were all together as a family, and he rang the doorbell, and I was the one to run to the door to see who was there. And I never had a peephole growing up, but Bobby Rachel's old Côte Saint Luc apartment had one, and so I loved using it anytime I had the chance to. And I just remember looking through that peephole and seeing Ron's big Santa Claus beard and jolly face and tremendous smile on the other end. And I just started giggling. And we then ensued on going about 5 minutes straight of just him going back and forth, pressing his thumb over the peephole and revealing a different silly face. So just, and that was, you know, to be a fully grown adult with so much wisdom and, you know, just to be able to kind of play with I think I was probably like 8 or 7 years old, a kid at that time, was always awesome. And, you know, to me, that's who Uncle Ron was. Could always depend on him for a laugh. And then another memory that just like recently resurfaced was when Kayla and Eva discovered an old drawing I did about, I think it was 18 years ago. So I was 10 years old at the time. Yeah, so, you know, what's funny is when I saw that, I immediately remembered, well, that's great. The title is A Study of Ron, which he probably proposed after he saw the finished work. He said, this should be a study of me. And I specifically remember, you know, he was sitting around the table in a conversation with the adults, and then I'm at this coffee table on the floor probably, drawing away. And I probably didn't even let him know that I was going to draw him, or maybe I said it slightly, but he definitely overheard because then he, you know, decided to stay perfectly still for me as he participated in the conversation. But every so often he would just look over and make me laugh. And, you know, again, that's really just some of the like memories that come to mind when I think of Uncle Ron and growing up. Just super playful with me and accommodating and engaging. And so, you know, we loved him tremendously, and of course, I wish I could be there today to hear more great stories and just learn more about some of the mystery behind him. But I just wanted to share a bit, you know, what it was like from my perspective being his nephew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, he was a really fascinating person, but I think what's really interesting is that he was definitely a mystery to Aaron and I growing up. But most recently, my wife Christine and we spent a lot of time with our Aunt Eva, helping to reorganize some of Ron's collections. So in doing that, we got to know him at a whole other level and got to uncover some incredible stories from his past and really see the depth of character and the depth of his true wisdom, which was displayed in these exorbitant amounts of postcards, and he had an incredible pipe collection, which I'm still sorting through, a wine collection, which was housed in a cellar that he had built specifically for their house on Avenue Road, and of course his book collection, which was easily 300 to 400 books filled with antiquarian and rare books. And you could just see in each and every item the thoughtfulness that went into it and the interests that he had, which were so vast. But it also was interesting because what I noticed was, especially in the books, so many of them were full of kind messages from his friends and family. And he was a sentimental person. He kept all of them through the years. And so each person who's here, either watching virtually or who's here in person, was clearly very loved by him. He really valued the people in his life, and he was an exceptional person. And so I really hope that we can remember him as that incredible, magnanimous person, but also as someone who was really humble and curious and able to make everyone feel appreciated and really special. Whenever he talked to someone, even an 8-year-old boy, he was able to make that person feel important. And that's a quality that really stood out for Uncle Ron. So thank you all for being here. We miss him so much, and we love you, Uncle Ron.
That's your cue, John. John Thorpe is a colleague who knows Ron just about as long as I have. It's a couple of weeks different.
Much has been said, both here today and in the rich outpouring of reflections on the memorial site at the time of his death, about what an extraordinary, unforgettable person Ron was. His wide knowledge of the world, his deep kindness, his impressive mechanical abilities, his imperturbable calm, the panache and style with which he did things, his stately bearing, his deep civility, his ready wit, his self-possession, his instinctive consideration of others, and of course his wonderful marriage to Eva. My very first encounter with him was when he got a lead role in a French play that was being put on at the university. But the thing was, Ron really didn't know how to speak French. Now I know some of the history behind that. Then or since. But he took the role and he learned the lines phonetically, phoneme by phoneme. And his performance was superb. Talk about panache. I've seen him paint a whole room deep red, wearing a shirt and tie and white gloves, making the point that with care and patience, you can tackle anything without making a mess. Talk about style. And the other face of this self-possession was his sharp eye for pretense and puffery in others. I remember once being at a college banquet with him. The menu was, duck à l'orange, which was not part of the normal diet at the time. Everyone was oohing and aahing about it. Afterwards, he said, quietly to me, he wouldn't have wanted to be offensive, that in fact it tasted like pasta with marmalade, and he was quite right. Today I'd like to mention something else, something that's not on the above list of his talents and qualities, but which seems to me, in retrospect, like a thread or cord running through all the rest, tying it together. It is that he was animated fundamentally by a sense of fun. It was quite simply more fun to do extraordinary things than to carry on with humdrum expected things. More fun to be remarkable than to be ordinary. More fun to catch the absurdities in common behavior than to just sign on to them. It was fun that led him, on occasion, to be a bit wicked. I remember that we went, as undergraduates, to stay for a few days at a Benedictine monastery in fairly remote Quebec. While we were there, he used the Abbey stationery to write letters to various aunts and uncles, I think, saying that he was entranced by monastic life and just letting it be inferred that he was about to join the Benedictine order. And this caused a wave of panic among his rather staunchly Protestant relatives. But if there were moments of that sort, the general tenor of his sense of fun was much gentler. I once drove miles with him to a remote lake on a very cold winter day before the snow had fallen to hear the weird noise made by the sheer ice as it bowed under the warming sun. It's very much like the sound of bowing a saw blade, but many, many, many times louder. It's extraordinary. For the fun of it. His many travels were shot through with a sense of fun. There's a wonderful picture of him and Eva at, I think, Gullfoss waterfall in Iceland. They are alone, bundled in parkas, seeming like tiny objects in a vast field of ice and snow and water spray. What fun that picture is. By contrast, though, he could find fun in very simple things. I have heard a recording of him and a friend, at undergraduate days I think, eating fruitcake. Amid the sound of gentle chewing, you hear the bemused pleasure in his occasional comments about whether it's the raisins or the cherries that are the best part. I can only say, what fun. We all felt, I know, that when Ron died, a bright light went out in the world. I've come to think that the source of that light, the energy powering it, came from his deep and wonderful sense of fun. How I miss it, and I think we all do.
Thank you, John. I must say, as I've heard everybody speak about Ronald, I see him again, I hear him again. I recognize him so well in the comments that this is a unique pleasure for me to be here and hear him spoken of in this way and to refresh my memory of just how much we loved him. I am given to understand that both Ava and Eva will now speak to us and tell us a little bit about what she might hope we would take away with us today.
Ron was a hero, and I mean that in the classical sense. Ron, as we've heard from both Jeanette and John, Ron exemplified the heroic characteristics of being honest, principled, modest, faithful, committed, determined, and always courteous. Everybody who knows Ron, even those who met him just briefly, recognize those qualities in him. Those who know him well know that it's not a facade, a patina, but a reflection of the very essence of his being. I know because I saw Ron at his best, and I saw Ron at his worst, and I never saw him waver in those qualities. And yet, in some ways, Ron was a tragic hero, in that it was his very heroic characteristics that made his life more difficult. His idealized aesthetic or standard were pursued unwaveringly with determination and commitment. Ron would never, ever, ever give up. I know, because I gave up much sooner, and would see Ron continue to persevere to find a solution for a problem, whether it was an intellectual problem, an aesthetic problem, a mechanical problem. Ron always found a solution. Often it was a truly ingenious solution. His many friends also know that he freely gave of his skills and knowledge, most of which were self-taught, in order to be helpful. The tragedy is that in his quest for perfection, he never truly had an opportunity to enjoy the fruits of his labor. Ron was my personal hero, and I mean that in the superhero sense. I was privileged to have spent my entire adult life with someone who taught me so much, with someone who, no matter what, I knew would turn heaven and earth upside down if I had a problem. Someone for whom my concerns and joys and happiness were his paramount sources of concern or joy or happiness. At the beginning of our relationship, I remember I would find Ron waiting at 2 o'clock in the morning on a cold winter morning outside the library where I had been studying. And he'd been waiting for hours in the Volkswagen. I guess some of us here remember the Volkswagen. And wearing a tie. It was probably this tie, actually. Waiting for me so that he could drive me home so I didn't have to walk in the cold. Much more recently, despite fatigue and weakness, he would still insist on holding the door open for me. Now, some of you might think that those are superficial gestures, but they're not. They're very important, symbolic representations of 42 years of kindness, friendship, and love. I was blessed to have a superhero as my best friend and husband over all of these years. I hope that in this past year, I've been able to be a superhero for Ron. Thank you.
I don't think there's any date. We heard Kayla speak to us before. Now Kayla is going to give us a gift and sing to us. After which I will have some housekeeping announcements, but that's all.
I'm not sure if this was turned back on. Okay, it is. This was one of Ron and Ava's favorite songs. I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, baby, I've been here before. I know this room, I've walked this floor. I used to live alone before I knew ya. It's seen your flag on the marble arch,
Love is not a victory march. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. 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 Well, maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love was how to shoot at someone who outdrew ya. It's not a cry that you hear at night. It's not someone who's seen the light. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. 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 Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla. What courage. Thank you again. People listen, viewing from the live streaming, and for all of you who are here. This is the time when I would, in conventional circumstances, say, let's go and have little triangular sandwiches and cups of tea and coffee and Irish whiskey. I can't do that. Public health doesn't allow that. For those of you who can stay with us for a few moments, I would invite you to come to the reception room where you will be treated with a bottle of water. That's it. And I must also ask you to respect the social distancing and wear your masks. But if you have a moment to spend with us, it would be great. If you don't and you have to get on your way, again, I want to say thank you. I've very much enjoyed this day. Actually, I needed this day.